Campaign for America's Future, and finally Simon Rosenberg. He's the president and founder of the New Democrat Network. Welcome, everybody. First question for the panel. Is it really worth it? The New York Times reports the president is trying hard to woo Wall Street fat cats. These are the same backers that contributed $71 million to his campaign in 2008. And that's nearly $10 million more than to the Republicans in that election. Remember, Goldman, Citigroup, and J.P. Morgan were among his top 7 campaign contributors. But is this healthy for our democracy, and does it help or hurt the president's re-election chances? Bob, I'm going to start with you on that one. Look, on the one hand, he needs money. On the other hand, it's not good to go to the voters and say, look, I was really trying to help those Wall Street guys.
Well, I don't think anybody's going to be surprised if the president gets contributions from Wall Street. He's deserved them. You know, he sustained Bush's policies in bailing out the banks. Nobody's been prosecuted. Bonuses are back up to record levels. The president has earned their gratitude. He's not as shameless as Republicans. They're trying to repeal even the small reforms we have had. But I think the president has a very good chance. You know, these are hedge funds operators, so they'll hedge their bets. They'll put money into both parties. But he's going where the money is, and I'm sure he'll do quite well.
Simon, is that too harsh, or is Bob right?
That was a good one, Bob. I think a year from now, if voters believe the president is on their side, on the side of struggling communities, he'll get a pass on things like this fundraiser. But if he's seen as being too close to the banks and too close to elite economic interests, it could spell him a lot of trouble next year in his reelection.
So, Michelle, how do you thread this needle, right? Because in our current system, unfortunately, you need a ton of cash, right? And who has it? The Wall Street bankers. On the other hand, the country hates the Wall Street bankers. Rightfully so, in my opinion. So how do you thread that needle?
On some level, you've got to do it, though. Look, especially money donors to political candidates tend to be a whiny, entitled bunch. They want their hand held. They want to be invited lots of nice places. And Obama has an unfortunate habit of getting out there and calling them names and using a lot of populist rhetoric. And even if they like some of his policies, they don't like that. So, you know, he has to go in and do a little damage control from time to time. This is not the first time he's done this. You know, there were stories 6 months ago about his charm offensive with the business community, and probably 6 months before that. So this is just what he has to do to kind of get things, you know, in line for election time.
All right, Bob,
it should be said in the president's defense, this is a guy who has said to hedge fund operators, it's not a good thing that you pay a lower tax rate than your chauffeurs. And, you know, the other party, the Republican candidate, thinks those tax rates are just dandy. So the president has taken a bite out of these folks. But there's no question he saved their skins, and I'm certain he can get some money out of them to run for president.
All right, real quick, Bob, I want to stay with you on that because, look, you're the one doing the most criticism here. And by the way, I don't want anybody to be confused. I agree, okay? But what do you do? What do you do? I mean, do you say, all right, no, you guys are fat cats, and I don't need your $71 million?
No, I assume he's going to go get money from them, and as I said, I think he deserves it. I think the bigger question is, what's the country need in terms of getting finance shackled so the real economy can work again? And what we haven't had are the investigations and the prosecutions and the accountability that we need to make certain that we don't go explode a new bubble and drive the economy over the cliff again. And
right,
and I think, you know, that reform agenda has to get pursued no matter where you get your money from in the campaign.
Yeah, and look, our system's broken, man. I mean, look at how terrible the Republicans and the Democrats both have to go begging Wall Street for money. Gee, I wonder why we're not tough on Wall Street. I wonder how that turned out. But we got to move on to the next question. Are Republicans blind to their own hypocrisy? Here's RNC Chairman Reince Priebus pushing for Weiner to resign while ignoring the past scandals of his own party. Let's look.
What Reince is saying doesn't pass the straight-face test from a chair of a party who, none of whose leaders called for Senator Vitter, who actually broke the law, to resign.
Senator Vitter, that's a 5-year-old story. Chris Lee, how long did he last? About 30 seconds. Senator Ensign resigned within 6 weeks of me becoming chairman. Look, I'm not defending these guys, but the fact of the matter is we have big issues here to tackle in this country.
Michelle, is it a good strategy to counter Weiner with Vitter? And did Reince do a decent job of answering that question, or is just there's no answer because Vitter's still in office?
There is no answer. Look, hypocrisy seems to be kind of a prerequisite for being a real partisan, but both sides need to tiptoe around this because they're both guilty when this pops up on both sides. I think the difference here, which is making it really complicated for Democrats, it's all about the visuals. David Vitter may have loved him some hookers, but I'm telling you, they did not have those pictures popping up and embarrassing him all over the web, and that's making it really tough for people to kind of let this go.
No, you're right. And there's new pictures of Weiner at the house gym. I don't know what this guy was thinking. Look, I've defended him saying it's his private life, but it was incredibly stupid to do all that. Now the president has spoken out on it to NBC News. Let's show you that and get your reaction.
Obviously, what he did was highly inappropriate. I think he's embarrassed himself. He's acknowledged that. He's embarrassed his wife and his family. Ultimately, there's going to be a decision for him and his constituents. I can tell you that if it was me, I would resign.
Simon, good answer or no?
I think we know how this is. I think the problem for Anthony Weiner is he doesn't come off just as having broken faith with his wife, but he comes off looking a little crazy here. I think the way that these pictures were done and pictures of himself when he's sitting on a couch, I don't really remember anything like this in all the years I've been in politics where it seems so incredibly self-destructive over such a long period of time. And so I think he's gone, and however we get there at the end of the day, we don't really know, but I think we know how the story's going to end.
And I really do think these house gym pictures are taking it another step because he brought it into the house gym. His colleagues are going to be looking at him going, dude, come on. This is going, I think,
I have a unique theory on this. I have a unique theory on this. I think that his problem was that he actually had a decent body. Because here's who doesn't take pictures of themselves naked. Okay, guys with guts. Okay, nobody's taking pictures of my gut and sending it to anyone. So I think that was part of the problem. But look, last thing, Bob, what did the Democrats do? They're in a bind here, right? Do you throw them under the bus? It's a personal matter. You shouldn't on ideology, on principle, I don't think. On the other hand, God, it's such a distraction. And so people have a good point about that. What would you do?
He's already under the bus. He's done as a national spokesman. Whether he stays in the Congress is really up to his constituents and his own conscience. If I were a progressive in his district, I'd be making plans to figure out who's going to run and who's going to challenge him. I think he's gone. The question is when. But Democrats aren't going to stand next to him. But whether, this is a private matter, whether he, not so private, but whether he resigns or not, really is up to him. But, this is really mud pit politics. The thing about the Republican chairman that I think is interesting is, you pretend you're on the high road, and meanwhile you're wallowing in this stuff. You can't pretend you're worried about the great issues facing the country when you're talking about Anthony Weiner.
Right. All right. Well, that's the Power Paddle for tonight. Michelle Cottle, Robert Borsage, Simon Berg. Thank you all for the great discussion.